You've got Kylian Mbappé, you've got the Ballon d'Or winner. It is stacked. Is this, Tony, the most talented roster at the World Cup?
It's a much better second half. And congrats, Kylian. You made it.
There is a version of this story where France lose to Senegal, and every expert in the world starts talking about a crisis, where Kylian Mbappé gets blamed for a flat first half, and Didier Deschamps faces questions about his system before the tournament is even 2 weeks old. That was the version Senegal were building toward for 45 minutes inside MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey on Tuesday, the 16th of June, 2026. It did not happen that way. Instead, France beat Senegal 3-1. Mbappé scored twice. A 23-year-old from Lyon came off the bench and scored on his World Cup debut, and France walked out of New Jersey with 3 points and a performance that, for all its first-half problems, ended up sending a message nobody in this tournament will forget in a hurry. If you are new to the channel, welcome to Akinkunmi Sports Hub TV. We go beyond the scoreline to tell you the real story. Subscribe and let us get into this. The history that made this game mean more. Before a single pass was played, this fixture already carried weight that went beyond 3 Group I points. The last time France and Senegal met at a World Cup was in 2002. France arrived in South Korea and Japan as the reigning world champions, widely considered the best team on the planet. Senegal were debutants, making their first ever World Cup appearance. Nobody gave them a chance. They won 1-0 and knocked France out in the group stage without Les Bleus scoring a single goal in the tournament. That result is still talked about as one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. It ended the reigns of Zinedine Zidane, Henry, and Patrick Vieira in one of football's most brutal group stage exits. 24 years later, both teams were back in the same fixture, now in front of a packed house of 80,545 people inside MetLife Stadium with the New York skyline visible in the distance. Senegal had just won the Africa Cup of Nations a few months earlier, had Sadio Mane leading the attack, and featured 4 starters who were actually born in France. France came in as one of the pre-tournament favorites, with arguably the deepest squad at the entire competition. The memory of 2002 sat under everything, and for 45 minutes, Senegal made that memory feel very relevant. How Senegal exposed France in the first half. The first half was not a disaster for France, but it was a warning, a clear, well-organized warning from a Senegal team that knew exactly what they were doing. France had the ball in the early stages, but possession without purpose is not control. Senegal sat compact, made central spaces tight, and forced France into patient circulation that went nowhere. The problem became very visible quickly. The front four of Mbappé, Ousmane Dembélé, Michael Olise, and Ousmane Dembélé were not talking to each other. They were operating as individuals, making clever movements that nobody was reading, creating flashes of something interesting that never quite connected. Mbappé, France's captain and the man the whole tournament would be watching, was isolated. He was receiving the ball in difficult positions, too far from goal and too far from support. For stretches, he barely touched the ball in threatening areas. Then Senegal reminded everyone why they were not here to make up the numbers. In the 25th minute, Nicolas Jackson, the Chelsea striker, ran behind France's defensive line after a quick Senegal transition and fired a shot against the foot of the left post. The ball came back off the woodwork and goalkeeper Mike Maignan got lucky as it rolled wide rather than in. That was a genuine chance. That was Senegal attacking exactly the space France kept leaving open when their fullbacks pushed forward without enough cover behind them. The bigger moment came right on the stroke of halftime. Sadio Mane drifted into the box and pulled the ball back across the face of goal to an unmarked Ismaïla Sarr. From that position, at that range, a goal looked certain. Sarr put it over the crossbar. At halftime, the score was 0-0. France had managed just 2 shots, both off target. Their expected goals figure at the break was 0.06, which essentially means almost nothing threatening had arrived. Senegal's organization had been excellent, and their counter-attacking moments had been cleaner and more dangerous than anything France had produced. The first-half blueprint was clear for anyone watching. Press France high, force turnovers on their defensive transition, and attack the space behind the fullbacks with pace. It had worked for 45 minutes. If you are finding this breakdown useful, drop a like on the video and share it with your friends who love football. It means a lot to the channel, and we cover every angle of this World Cup. How France fixed it without panicking. This is the part that separates good teams from genuine contenders. Deschamps made a positional change rather than wholesale substitutions. Olise and Dembélé swapped their positions. Olise began operating in a more central role, moving into the space between Senegal's midfield and defensive line. That single tactical adjustment changed the entire picture of the match. Suddenly, Mbappé had someone finding him in the right areas. Senegal's defensive shape, which had been so disciplined in the first half, started being pulled in two directions at once. Dembélé stretched the wide channel, Olise moved centrally and created the lane, and Mbappé, who had been quiet and frustrated for 45 minutes, sharpened immediately. The shift in momentum was gradual but unmistakable. France pressed higher after the ball in the second half. Their counterpress became sharper. Every Senegal turnover carried real danger now instead of dying quietly in the midfield. Olise drove at defenders, Mbappé tested the goalkeeper from difficult angles, and the entire pace of France's play increased. Then the 66th minute arrived, and everything that had been building exploded into a single moment. Toward that goal, he reached 57 international goals for France, drawing level with Olivier Giroud as the country's all-time top scorer. The record that Giroud had held since breaking Thierry Henry's mark at the 2022 World Cup now had a co-owner. But here's the detail that gave this moment a remarkable human dimension. Giroud, who retired from playing and now works as a television commentator, was in the studio covering the match for BBC Sport when Mbappé equalized his record. He spoke about it calmly and explained that Mbappé could one day reach 100 international goals. Then, deep into stoppage time, with Senegal's Ibrahim Mbappé having just pulled one back to make it 2-1 in the 95th minute after a Bradley Barcola goal had extended France's lead, Mbappé received the ball around 30 yards from goal. He took one touch, sensed the space, and hit a thunderous strike into the top corner of the net. Edouard Mendy had no chance. 3-1. Mbappé now had 58 international goals. Outright record holder. Giroud reacted to it immediately on live television, and his words were generous in a way that only someone with true confidence in their own legacy could manage. He said he was really happy for Mbappé, that he could never feel jealous because Mbappé is an incredible player who deserves every record he earns. That exchange between the former record holder congratulating the new one in real time on live broadcast from the same stadium is one of those moments that makes football feel bigger than just a game. The records Mbappé now holds are staggering. With 14 World Cup goals in 15 appearances, he moved level with West Germany's Gerd Müller in the all-time World Cup scoring charts and is now just 2 goals behind Miroslav Klose's all-time record of 16. He is 27 years old. He has scored at 3 consecutive World Cups. The record book is genuinely at risk of becoming his personal property before this tournament ends. The man who came off the bench and decided the game. While Mbappé was writing history, a 23-year-old from Villeurbanne, near Lyon, was quietly producing his own landmark moment. Bradley Barcola was born in 1902 to a French mother and a Togolese father. He came through the academy at Lyon, broke into professional football there, and was sold to Paris Saint-Germain in 2023 for 45 million euros. At PSG, he won the UEFA Champions League as part of a treble in 2025 and established himself as one of the most direct and dangerous wide forwards in European football. He came into the 2026 World Cup squad with real credentials. He did not start against Senegal. Deschamps sent him on in the 79th minute as a replacement for Dembélé, with France protecting a 1-0 lead and Senegal still dangerous on the counter. Within 1 minute of stepping onto the pitch, Barcola received a pass from Rabiot, cut inside from the left as Senegal scrambled to recover and lifted the ball delicately over Edouard Mendy into the net. World Cup debut, 60 seconds on the pitch, a goal that essentially decided the match. Deschamps spoke after the game and praised Barcola's immediate impact, saying that beyond the goal itself, Barcola injected pace and energy into a side that needed exactly that in the final stages. It was one of those substitutions that told you everything about how much quality France have, waiting when the starting lineup is not getting the job done. And this is where the real story of this France team becomes genuinely frightening for the rest of the tournament. The depth that makes France different. Think about what Deschamps still had sitting on the bench after Mbappé's first goal. Marcus Thuram, Ryan Cherki, Bradley Barcola, Aurélien Tchouameni was managing his minutes. The squad contains Randal Kolo Muani, Matisse Tel, and Jean-Philippe Mateta as further options. These are not promising young players being tested at a tournament. These are established performers at the highest level of European club football who cannot make the starting 11 because the front four in front of them is already among the most talented groups any international team has assembled in years. The first half showed the starting 11 can go flat and disconnected. The second half showed that once the shape is fixed and the quality is allowed to flow, France can take a match away from any opponent relatively quickly. And when the starting unit still needs finishing, Deschamps has a bench that would comfortably start for most other countries at this tournament. That is not just depth, that is a structural advantage that compounds across 90 minutes. Senegal's attacking quality was real. Mané, Jackson, and Sarr created genuine danger, and the first half blueprint they executed was clear and professional. Against a France team with a weaker bench, a slower halftime adjustment, or an Mbappé who was slightly sharper in the second half, the result could have been different. But France fixed what needed fixing inside the same 90 minutes, pulled away with goals from two different profiles of player, and still had unused match winners on the sideline when the final whistle blew. That combination of tactical flexibility and raw depth is what makes this squad feel more complete than the one that reached the 2022 final. What France have told the rest of the tournament?
France are not a perfect team right now. The first half against Senegal showed clear issues. The fullbacks pushed too high without enough cover behind them. The front four lacked chemistry and connection for long stretches. Mbappé was isolated and operating without the right support structure. Those are real problems that better teams in the knockout rounds will try to exploit. But the word that kept coming up after the match was one that Mbappé himself used in his post-match comments. He said that France can score at any moment, that they have to stay calm and composed and trust what they know they're capable of. A team that can lose the first half of a game, adjust at the break without needing chaos to motivate them, and then win the second half comprehensively to leave with a 3-1 result is a team with a certain kind of maturity that only comes from years of managing big moments together. France in 2018 were slow starters who grew into a tournament. France in 2022 survived injuries, rough patches, and a final that went to penalties before losing. This version of France is carrying the experience of both those journeys alongside a new generation of players who are entering their prime years of their careers right now. If Deschamps can tighten the defensive transitions, push Olise into his best position from the start, and keep Mbappé arriving in the right areas consistently, this squad has the tools to go all the way in this tournament. The first half against Senegal was a warning, the second half was the reminder, and the scoreline at the end was the answer. France are here, and they are very, very dangerous. If you want us to do a full tactical breakdown of France's squad depth or cover their next Group I match against Iraq, let us know in the comments below. Subscribe to our Kinkunmi Sports Hub TV so you never miss a video, and turn on the notification bell because we are covering this entire World Cup from every angle.